So a bit of background, and these QI sessions are part of the Primary Care Improvement Collaborative, and they will form part of the learning system. These sessions have been developed to support the collaborative to understand how to use QI tools in a primary care setting, particularly in relation to the Primary Care Access Programme, pharmacotherapy, and CTAC. We will share practical applications of QI tool examples, drawing on our learning from our previous programmes. So in our session today, we're going to cover aim statements and driver diagrams. Claire will now launch a poll, which we want to capture your knowledge on aim statements at the moment and see kind of how confident you feel about using them and any other information you know about them. Just give a couple of minutes for those answers to come in. So the overview of an aim. An aim is used to define a realistic and measurable outcome for your improvement activity. The main points in that statement are realistic and measurable, and we'll touch a bit more on them in later slides. So why would you use an aim? And for developing an aim, we will look to provide a clear vision for your improvement activity and what you want to accomplish. A well-defined aim acts as the foundation for any improvement effort. It helps to establish what success will look like and sets measurable goals. It also provides us with a clear vision and guides decision making, ensuring that the project remains focused on achieving what the intended outcomes are. So ideally you would want anyone to be able to come into your team and see your aim and understand what you were working towards. It provides focus and purpose for the full team involved in the improvement work. So having a shared aim creates a sense of direction and purpose for the entire team. It ensures that every team member understands their role and provides a clear focus for everyone to be motivated and aligned with the improvement objectives. It also helps to ensure that all activity is aligned with the original area of focus. And an aim provides a reference point to evaluate whether efforts remain aligned with the core goal. Consistently revisiting the aim can help to refocus efforts to prevent drifting. So what this means is that when you've been working on a project for a long period of time, it can be easy to get dragged off in other directions and lose a kind of sense of focus on what you were aiming for. Having the aim is the focal point for the team from the beginning to help keep everyone aligned and give you a chance to sort of revisit what you'd planned to set out to do at the start of the project. It's also essential for aiding communication between all stakeholders around what you're trying to achieve. And a strong aim can simplify the message for stakeholders, ensuring that everyone understands the work. It can also facilitate transparency, as it allows for regular updates on progress towards the goal. So how do we develop an aim? There are three things to remember when we're looking to develop an aim. We want to keep it small, keep it manageable, and make sure that it's measurable. Team involvement from the start is critical for the success of your aim. When you include everyone in defining and working towards the aim, it fosters a sense of collaboration and shared responsibility. This helps to build a culture where everyone feels their input is valued and where their ideas are freely exchanged. So you want to be clear about the challenge or issue you're experiencing when you're defining your aim. You want to make sure the problem you're addressing is well defined. Being clear about the challenges means everyone understands exactly what needs to be improved. This clarity is key to effective problem solving and keeps efforts focused on the real issue. Try to be specific when you want to about what you want to achieve. Your aim should be specific. Instead of saying something like, for our aim we want to reduce calls, you want to specify exactly what you want to achieve, such as reduce patient calls for footnotes by 20%. Something like this offers a clear, detailed aim that everyone knows what success looks like and allows for better measurement along the way. So how will you know when you've met your aim? You want to define the criteria for success, and this means knowing how to measure progress, whether through data, feedback, or other clear metrics available. If you know what to track, you'll be able to see when you've hit the target and whether the intervention was successful. This is always important in quality improvement, where you want to measure success over time, or track your data over time. As you do that, it will ensure that you're identified where changes were made and whether they made your success any more prevalent along the way. You want to be realistic about the aim you're trying to develop. You want to make sure your aim is realistic and also can it be achieved, and also by setting a realistic aim is crucial for maintaining motivation and progress. What this means is when you set an aim at the beginning, if this can be too far reaching for your team, it might demotivate people and not help them see that this could be done. But if you set one that's realistic, people will maintain their motivation and see that achieving that goal is something that they can work towards. So these are some examples of aims. I'd like to imagine that you were going to meet a team or you were going to become a new part of the team. If they were to show you their aim, would you know exactly what they were working towards and how they were going to achieve it? You might look for things and see, is the aim short and snappy? Is it clear for a new member of the team? Is there enough information to know what this team are doing? And can you have a conversation with them based on that aim? A well-written aim should be straightforward and easy to understand. It should avoid jargon and make sure that everyone knows what you're trying to achieve. For example, with this first aim, reduce the number of acute prescriptions for HRT. This is clear because it specifies the action and gives a sense of direction. A good aim is measurable so that it can be tracked. And with this second aim, we can track the progress because we know the time frame and the target. The aim should directly address an issue you're trying to solve with relevance to the wider goals of the team. For aim 3, it addresses a specific problem of fit note requests, overwhelming phone lines, and suggests a relevant solution. You always want to ensure that your aim addresses the key issue and provides a clear action. It is important to remember that the aim can change over time, and when things become clearer, it is possible to change the aim to add numeric values and time for completion. So thank you for everyone for listening to my part about the aim statements. We're just going to launch another poll to see if your knowledge has been increased about aim statements and see if you find them a wee bit better to understand now. I'll now pass on to Claire, who will discuss driver diagrams.
Thanks, Kieran. So we will let the results of that poll come in and then there will be another poll to find out what you know about driver diagrams. And then we'll see what you know at the end. So let's have a look and see where are we with our responses coming in from that poll. Good. So few people shifted from they can apply it to they know how, where and when to use it, or they can adapt it and they can explain it. So perfect. We've moved some people on. Some people have just consolidated what they already knew in terms of aim statements. Before I move on to the poll about driver diagrams, does anybody have any questions in relation to aim statements and anything that Kieran covered there? If you can pop it into the chat for me, that would be great. I've counted to the magic 10 and I'm not seeing anything coming through. So if there are any questions that pop up, please feel free to pop them into the chat box, or we can come back to them at the end of the next bit. So I'm going to hand over to Kieran to launch my poll about driver diagrams. So this is just getting a sense of what your understanding and your knowledge level is around driver diagrams before I launch into giving you an explanation of them. think just a few more responses to come through on that poll now. Great. So most of you know what a driver diagram is. So this will be a refresher for those of you that know what it is. And for those of you that know how and when and where to use it, none of this will be new for you, but one of the examples that we've come up with might just help resonate or put into context what your understanding of driver diagrams is. So this is what a driver diagram looks like. This is the structure of it. So it's a visual representation of a team's theory of change. So it will capture your aim, which Kieran's just covered. So it's really important that you've defined your aim, you know what good looks like, you know where you want to get to, and then that forms the first part of your driver diagram. So in order to achieve your aim, you need to ensure certain things are happening, which requires certain other things to happen, which will feed in, those things will be fed by the different types of change ideas that you've got and some of the things that you'll do differently. And then your measurements should fall out of some of those change ideas and primary and secondary drivers. So driver diagrams read from left to right, starting with your aim, then moving into what we need to ensure, which are your primary drivers. So those are things that are big levers. They're big things that need to change. They're high level sort of topic areas, which takes you into your secondary drivers, which are where you get more of the detail around some of the specifics of what you need to be able to achieve your aim. And then those things are all the what needs to happen and what you need to have in place to be able to deliver your aim. And then how you make that aim happen is where you bring your change ideas in. So those are the things that you're going to start, stop, or do differently in order to be able to move yourself towards your aim. So how to use a driver diagram. Once you've selected your aim and you're clear about what you want to accomplish, again, as we say with all QI tools, there'll be no surprise here. QI is not a solo sport, it's definitely a team activity. So bring as many people who are part of the area of work or the topic that you're focusing on in your aim to get an understanding of the things that contribute to that work, how it happens, what works, what doesn't work. You brainstorm with them to be able to help you to identify those key elements of your driver diagram, your primary drivers, your secondary drivers, and your change ideas. Now, there's no exact right or wrong way of doing a driver diagram. Some people will start with brainstorming what are our primary and secondary and change ideas. Some people will just start with brainstorming what is everything that will contribute to us being able to achieve this aim, and then they start to theme things, and you might find that your primary and secondary drivers naturally emerge. One thing you do need to be careful of with a driver diagram is that your change ideas all link through to a secondary driver that links through to a primary driver, and there's no wee orphan change ideas in there. They should all collectively combine to move you towards achieving your aim. Why you should use a driver diagram. It'll help you to understand what you need to do to achieve your aim. As I've just said, it helps make sure that you don't have any wee orphan change ideas and that they all link through to be contributing to getting you to where you want to go. Sometimes when you've mapped out all of the things that need to happen, you can begin to understand you might need to put more effort and focus into certain places. There might be a natural order that will emerge from some of the change ideas that you'll come up with that will go into your driver diagram. A driver diagram will help you start to think about your measurements. So if you've mapped out your aim and what you need to have in place and some of the changes that you might make in order to achieve that aim, it should help to begin to visualize for you and highlight for you where you might need to be able to take measurements. It might help you to identify where some of those measurements can come from systems or whether you might have to put some data collection processes in place. And one of the really valuable things about a driver diagram is it helps you to stay focused on your aim. So mission creep is something that is definitely at risk when you're doing quality improvement activities and projects. is you start to think, oh, we could change this as well, and we could change that as well, and we could just do this, and if we did this as well, and then the next thing you know, you're trying to boil the ocean. So having your clear aim and your driver diagram allows you to come back to those things and use them as dynamic documents to say, are we keeping on track? Are we keeping focused? Are we sure that everything that we're doing is actually moving us towards achieving that aim, and that we're not venturing out into tangents and other areas and other improvements that need to be made, because you can't improve everything at once. It's about keeping things small and keeping them manageable, and staying within the confines of your aim, and being able to use your driver diagram to kind of define the parameters of that aim, and what you will and what you won't do, and also what you can and what you can't do. That's another thing that a driver diagram is useful for, is recognising that there could be a key influencing factor which needs to be in place or needs to be slightly different from how it is in order for you to achieve your aim, but it's out with that circle of control that you have. So you need to think about how that is going to impact on your ability to be able to achieve your aim, and whether that's something that you need to look at tweaking a little bit in what it is that you're trying to achieve. But the key thing to remember with driver diagrams is a theory. So a driver diagram, it's not a to-do list, it's not a project plan, it's the things that you know from your experience of working with that topic and working in that environment that work and that don't work, the things that you know are there and work well, and the things that you feel are missing. As you start to work in test changes and take some measurements, your learning will evolve and it will change, and that might well need to prompt a change in your driver diagram, because something that you thought was a primary driver or a secondary driver might turn out to be less of an influencing factor than you thought, in which case you maybe don't need to focus on it quite so much. Or it might be that something that was a secondary driver actually feels like it's ramped up and might have become a primary driver. So as we say with all QI tools, you're never one and done with them. You keep coming back to them and asking yourself the question, is this reflective of what we're doing, of what we're working on, of what we're trying to achieve, of the things that we know are going to influence us being able to achieve and deliver on our aim? And you make adjustments as your learning evolves and grows, and as people come into the team and as people leave the team. They can all contribute to your driver diagram and your theory of change around how you might achieve your aim. So this is an example that we've pulled together of a driver diagram from a primary care context. Apologies, it's small, but we will share these slides afterwards so you can begin to have a look at it in more detail. So sometimes driver diagrams can look very busy. They can have lots of information on them. We would recommend 3 to 4 primary drivers. They're usually really high level structural things like what we've got here is systems, workforce and people. If you have any more than sort of 4 primary drivers, you've probably got a more complex change idea, a more complex aim going on there, which you might want to think about separating out into keeping things small and manageable and realistic. Secondary drivers, you're looking about 4 to 5 secondary drivers per primary driver. Again, there's no exact science. If you have more or you have less, you have what feels right for you based on where you are when you start to develop your driver diagram. It might be that you start with a few and you add more in as your learning evolves, and then change ideas are there for you to record when they occur to you, when you begin to define what they are. It could be that you decide to throw all of your change ideas into your driver diagram to begin with, and then you begin to pick out which ones you're going to work on one at a time. Or it could be that you add them in as you've started to work on them. Some people choose not to put their change ideas into their driver diagrams and simply have their aim, primary and secondary drivers. You use it in the way that works for you. If it's helpful to have your change ideas there to be able to document them and visualize them for the team, then put them in. If it doesn't help, then you don't put them in. as I say, there's no right and wrong. It's just what feels helpful and useful for your context and your team to support your learning, to use as a communication tool, and to help you reflect on where you are as you make progress and keep you focused on your aim. So there we go. That was a quick trot through driver diagrams. Hopefully just reinforced what you already knew and consolidated your learning, and there was no surprises in there for you. So Kieran's going to launch our poll so we can check how you feel about driver diagrams now that we've had a quick trot through them. So I will wait for the responses to come through from the poll. And then the next bit is over to you guys. So any questions about driver diagrams, about aims, anything that you would like to clarify or anything that you want to check, if you can pop that into the chat, that would be lovely. Thank you. Thank you for your responses to that poll. It looks as if there's a few of you have shifted and that you now feel that you can adapt and explain driver diagrams. I can't even say them. So perfect. That's exactly what we're hoping for, is that small shift in your learning through these quick QI skills sessions. And I can see that somebody is typing, so I will wait for this question to pop through. If anybody on the call is happy with where they are, if you don't have any questions or you don't want to hold on to listen to the question that's coming through and the answer to it, please feel free to leave and to drop off onto the call. We have these sessions scheduled for an hour, so we give lots of time to be able to have questions and responses coming back, but we absolutely don't want to hold you captive for a whole hour just because that's how long the session's in the diary for. So if you'd like to pop off, please feel free to do so. And I will wait until this question comes through before we stop sharing. So I can see in the driver diagram example you gave, there wasn't any measurable percentage in it. Is it okay not to have a measure in your aim? So in true QI and fidelity to the model, the bestest aim that you could have for a QI activity is something that has got a how much by when in it. We are trying to be very pragmatic in our sharing of how to use QI, and you might not be in a position to understand how much of something you might need to improve or change or increase or reduce when you start to work on your aim. So you might start off with an aim that doesn't have a how much by when in it, and as your learning evolves, you can begin to put some of those metrics into it. Or it could be that you're working on something that's slightly more high level and multifactorial, that having a how much by when in it isn't going to help you, and you're working with a slightly broader aim, in which case you might want to then look at some how much by when measures for some of your drivers. Does that help to answer the question? It felt like a very aye but no answer. Is you have an aim that helps your team understand what you're doing, and if it doesn't have measures in it to start with, that's fine. If it gets them by the end, even better. Or if keeping that broad aim is enough for you to work with, it just needs to be good enough for you. But true QI people will tell you your aim should always have a how much by when. Good. That's been helpful, thank you. And I think we have got another question coming through, so I'll just wait for somebody to finish typing. Oh no, I've frightened them off now. So no more questions coming through. So thank you very much for coming along today. The session will be posted and we'll give you links through to it. The slides will be shared with you for access as well. Please feel free, I'm about to stop the recording, so please feel free if you want to have a bit of a chat with us to stay on. We can do mics and cameras once we've stopped the recording. Or if there's nothing that you want to ask or you want to have a chat with us about, then please feel free to head off, and thank you for coming along. And we hope to see you at one of our QI sessions before the end of the year.